coming up. Blues and the Red Wings, but right now here on Blues Live, we welcome in Andy Strickland, who joins us live from downstairs. Andy, we often see the head coach of the Blues, Ken Hitchcock, interviewed on the bench during the second period, or we see him in the post-game interview with the media afterwards, but not often we get to see him kind of sit down, which you had the opportunity to do, and have an extended conversation.
Yeah, and it was a great conversation too, Pat. It's not often we see someone go from having virtually zero playing experience to becoming one of the more successful coaches in the history of the NHL. Ken Hitchcock is truly a coaching version of rags to riches.
The people in Canada say I'm the big hope. I'm the great hope. If he can do it, anybody can do it. And you know, like what they're saying is, if you don't play hockey and you didn't play hockey for a living, if you didn't come up through professional sports, there's still hope for you.
When you first got your first head coaching job in the NHL, did you believe you were ready for it?
I thought I was, and I got to tell you, I went to Dallas in January 1996, and we were a long ways away from being what we were. A year later, we were really good. But that 3 months shook me to the core. I left there, well, I coached January, February, March, first week April. I left there thinking, the way I want the team to play, the system we play, it's not working. And I left there thinking, I don't know if I can coach in this league. I had a certain system, which was the Oiler way, full court press, full blitz, full pinch everywhere. I had that in my mind, and everybody that I coached, junior and midget, played that way.
Did it work?
It did. We got killed. We got killed in Dallas, and we were exposed, odd man rushes, million scoring chances against, and I was shook. And then I spent that summer, I stayed in Dallas, and I spent that summer with Rick and Doug, and they said, listen, there's a different way to play. This is an older team. It's a slower team. We have to find a different way to play. And they convinced me to change to what really was a system of play that I carried with me for almost 15 years. Personalities
change, and everything they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. How do you remain current? How do you stay on top of the current generation so you can relate to these young kids?
Well, everybody talks about, you know, Hitch changed when he came to St. Louis, and he's had success because he's changed. They're not right there. What Hitch has done is understand what this generation needs, and that is, and I've said this to you before, Andy, is this is a generation that needs more messaging and more massaging. If you're going to be successful at this level, if you're going to be successful in this business, you have to use more people to get your message across. Because this is a generation that has a lot of things going in their lives. This is a generation that has a lot of balls in the air, way more than they had before. There's a lot of pulls on their time. There's a lot of pulls on the mental part of their game from people around and in the business. Our job is to make sure that the message is concise and clear. If a head coach just did it, and I've done that for years, it's just been me sending the message, it wears out, number one. It doesn't get absorbed, number two. My job as the head coach is to reinforce the absorption. And that's what I do with the assistant coaches. And I think divvying up responsibility, adding to the responsibility these coaches have, makes it more current. And if you can't do that, if it's one guy, one message all the time, the players don't absorb what's needed to be absorbed.
Give me a coach that you go to when you need to either vent or you know you can learn from.
Tony. Tony
La Russa?
Yeah.
Why Tony?
Because he sees things that I see. He sees around corners. He sees things. So he's very supportive, but you know, if I'm in a tough spot, I'll talk to him.
What's the one thing Tony La Russa has told you that still resonates today?
Set the game up so you can win it. Make sure you're doing that. Don't get swallowed up by the moment. Set the game up. In other words, the process, trust your process, that you can set the game up so you can win it. Don't react to something that happened. Move it forward. If you move it forward, they move forward.
And you can't argue Ken Hitchcock always has an interesting perspective when it comes to breaking down the National Hockey League, and psychology when it comes to knowing his players. Coming up in part 2 on Saturday, Pat will bring in his wife, Karina. We'll get her take on who Ken Hitchcock is behind the scenes.
No, it's fascinating stuff. Andy, thank you very much.